A large part of our practice is about the culture of architecture itself, and it has a lot to do with activating public space through design. And what Exhibit Columbus is about is really to keep active the legacy and the history of architecture. And so it's something we share very much, that mission and that idea.
In Columbus, Indiana, another component is the modern history of this city. And it was very clear that the community's desire of understanding your own history and how that modern narrative can be not just criticized and rejected, but still learn from that legacy.
And so how do you create curiosity and how do you have people re-engage with the real and with things that you see every day? We really wanted to build on this legacy of modernity that is there.
One of the most memorable moments in Columbus was to visit the Miller House, and it's definitely a house that we've been looking at since the beginning of our architecture education as students. There are so many great elements that we continue to learn from, but there was one element that's also very iconic of that house is the hedge on the perimeter, which was a way to shield the residents inside that house from the streets and from the context. And we thought, what about taking that very iconic modernist element and really make that into an element that people can engage. And the best hedge is dense when you don't have space that you can sneak through. But what about the way reverse that? So we have this lawn, which is a very horizontal flat surface that greets you in this very passive and formal way. So we started to have this imagination of something that's more actively inviting you to be there.
Sometimes I think you could say the modernists were a little bit disassociated with the volatile reality of nature, and they used it in a very graphic sense. And then Kylie did a proposal also for this site. You were alluding to that as well. And so we're playing with this grid of trees, but they are loose, they're not fixed, and actually they move. And so this idea that you try to introduce an order, but ultimately it is flexible, it's volatile, and it's unpredictable, is something that for us is of interest and maybe is how we could differentiate ourselves from traditional modernity. And in some way we veer off the modernist mantra of form follows function by creating a form that opens up for function and allows for function to happen.
We are also introducing this debris netting to create almost like a hammock surface. So every time people are sitting on it or walking on it, they will also move the tree. So this hedge would also be dancing together with the people. We think it's going to be really fun. We're also drawing the plan of this installation with lights recycled from last year's installation. So when you're arriving from outside at night, this installation would be also a light sculpture that welcomes you. We were trying to make all the elements be either from the existing context or something that can be recycled and reused later for other projects in town. So the tree here is exactly the species that the Miller House used, and we're working with the landscape and ground caretaker that once the trees are done with the exhibition, they will be planted in the Miller House. So it's also a way to fold the project into the maintenance cycle of a heritage like that.
For us, architecture is a cultural act and it is a continuous conversation, and in some way, tying those strings of history into the project and towards the future is also something that we try to do in many of our works.
These conversations has become much more in the forefront of city making, architecture making, space making, and society making. So it's very exciting to find a project that really bring all of that together.